All right, ladies and gentlemen, today is April 11th, 2018, and is a Wednesday. Today's video will cover both materials that were reviewed yesterday on Tuesday, April 10th, and also today, April 11th. So you're going to see multiple bell ringers here. So if you missed any of those days, you can get caught up with those and get the answers down so you can get the points later on. All right. All right, excuse me. So today's bell ringer is just really simple in terms of review. After discussing the goals of both the U.S. and USSR after World War II, which nation would you say had the upper hand to be more successful in their endeavors and why? So, again, I want you to take what you learned about the goals of the U.S. and the Soviet Union and try to come up with your own plans, or at least your own understanding of why these countries might have been successful, why they might have failed. So it's just an opinion question. There's no right or wrong answer here. Just based on what you know about the goals of the U.S. and the Soviet Union, who might have had a better chance of success. So give me that answer, give me the reason why, and then we can continue on here, all right? Now, for the rest, not the rest of class, but on Monday I gave you the new section of the worksheet for us to just start working on after current events, and I gave you 10 minutes at the first part of class on Tuesday, and then I checked it. So if you haven't been here for the 2 days since Monday, you got to make sure you come back with this entire worksheet, section 1 and section 2, both sides done. So you have the YouTube videos here to help you out. I have one from last week, the Wednesday through Friday material here, so you can take that. All right. Now, for 19.2, there's several topics we're going to discuss here and talk about. I'm trying to get through each question within a minute or so. That way we can continue and keep talking about some of this stuff moving forward. All right. So the first question, dealing with this section called The Cold War Heats Up, deals with the Marshall Plan. The first question asks, what does the Marshall Plan do to help the people of Europe? Essentially what it does, it's a plan sent by George C. Marshall, which called for financial aid to any struggling European nation, and it sent more than $10 billion in aid to Europe in the form of food, feed, fertilizer, fuel, cotton, machinery, raw materials, and we also gave $13 billion in grants and loans. Now, the effects of this on Europe, and you can kind of add this down here as well, is that this helps to completely restabilize the European economy after World War II within a matter of years. So by the time that the country is, by the time the continent of Europe is 5 years out of the war, its economy is up and running again, and there's no effects of war that are going to impact it. All right. So this is a big deal here. Now, the goal is obviously the United States wants to create stable democracies and economies in Europe. Question number 2 asks you to look at what was discussed here, the $10 billion and $13 billion, and how does this plan accomplish it based on what we know about trying to create these stable democracies and economies. All right, so what does this do for the United States in terms of accomplishing our goals here at this point? The general consensus here for this answer would be the fact that the United States becomes a country that can now be trusted to help in a positive way. Not to help and then just tell people what they need to do, but we're going to give people the stuff they need to survive, the stuff they need to live on, so they can get themselves, built up. And then by the point that they are in a matter of years, they're ready to sustain their own economies. And this is just to kind of provide a sort of fuel to help start the fire for them. And all they need to do is keep the fire going. All right. So this Marshall Plan helps us accomplish it because the United States is the benefactor of essentially all this goodwill towards them, because Europe is struggling after the war, and a lot of Western European countries especially take advantage of this money, these supplies, and these grants. All right. So number 2 really determines that it helps us understand and helps give us the right of way to support countries that are struggling after the war's over, that we are the best country to provide help, and that we are the country that you want to go towards, not the Soviets and not communism. All right. Number 3, Stalin's plan to take West Berlin. Now, to kind of review about Berlin here, West versus East, France, Britain, United States combine their sections of Germany to create West Germany. Soviets create East Germany at the same time. Now, Berlin becomes blocked. Stalin's plan to take West Berlin from the capitalist interests is mostly to try and starve the West Berlin people, so that way it becomes a hindrance for the United States to want to keep up supplying it. All right. When I say access to Berlin, all the roads, railroads, any way to get into Berlin by land is blocked. Stalin blows up railroad lines, he blows up bridges, blows up whatever access we could possibly have to get to Berlin, West Berlin specifically, by land. He pretty much creates West Berlin into an island that's not surrounded by oceans, but surrounded by non-capitalist territory, communist territory. All right. So his plan to take away from capitalist interests was to essentially pretty much starve the people and block access and supplies to West Berlin. He's mostly threatened by a new currency in West Germany that is going to be worth more than the one that's created in East Germany. Thus, he's trying to play is trying to play games, trying to say, okay, what is the United States willing to do? Now, most people wanted Truman to have two choices, or at least they thought he would only act in two different ways. First off, he would either leave because it would be a hindrance for us to try to supply West Berlin with food. You're looking at a 10 square mile piece of territory, along with the United States also trying to support 2 to 3 million people in this 10 square mile territory. All right, so Truman says we could leave because it is a hindrance. Let the Soviets take it. Just let them win. Or we could possibly end up going to war over it. Truman does not take either one of those options. He takes a third, which is the answer to number 4. So how does Truman solve the problems of West Berlin? Why do you think it helped? Truman leads what is called the Berlin Airlift. Now, to kind of give you a reminder of what Berlin looks like, this is the blue section here, this little island within the middle of the Soviet sphere, the Soviet-controlled East Germany. So you're looking at a major section here of West Berlin that is capitalist, but it is now starving. Americans, the British, and the French are going to have to provide goods to this, and all land access is cut off. Well, Truman's option is the Berlin Airlift in terms of how he decides he wants to fix it. 200,000 total flights are led from West Germany, as you can see here, into West Berlin, drop the stuff off, fly back, and then resupply yourself. So there's 13,000 tons of supplies that are sent daily from West Germany to West Berlin to help feed the people. Eventually, Stalin does give up the chase here, and it helps because, again, it's another way that the Americans, the British, and the French, as capitalist nations, can say no matter what they do, we will not give up on you. We will be a country of good faith. We will be someone that you can trust in times of need, not the Soviets. All right, this is kind of the goal, and that we're not going to give up on you. We're not going to go to war over you, but we will not we'll do everything we can to keep you in our favor. And without getting involved militarily. So that's kind of like the United States issue here for number 4, right? Number 5, principles in NATO. Obviously, the United Nations has a major problem on its hands because there are 5 countries that are responsible for enacting policy here. One is the United States, Great Britain, France, Soviet Union, and China. These 5 countries all have the power of veto, which allows them to deny any sort of access to accomplish anything within the United Nations. If the United Nations wants to put a plan out there, a policy out there, and provide money to countries that are struggling, if 4 of the 5 countries agree but one doesn't, then that plan is not going to be enacted. All 5 countries need to agree to it, it's a great democratic way of doing things, but nothing gets done because nobody's going to agree on anything. All right? So this power of veto the Soviets use quite often when dealing with these issues in the United Nations. So the United States decides to come together and create an association of democratic peace-loving states to defend against the Soviets, which leads us to the creation of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Now, number 5, the question asks you, what was the principle that all NATO nations agreed? What slogan did they use to promote it? All right. The principle that they agreed on was called collective security, and the slogan is an attack on one is an attack against us all. So both of these points should be here for number 5, and that is NATO's new policy that they are going to take hold. All right. Now, this is the end of what we go over for day 1 on Tuesday, because I give you 10 minutes in class and we discuss some of this stuff moving forward here as well for the end of Tuesday's class. We'll begin moving forward with the end of Wednesday's class. And again, here's some of the countries in NATO. The Soviets do respond with the Warsaw Pact moving forward because they want to create something that's similar to NATO, what the United States has, so they want to do something on their own. They call it the Warsaw Pact. Not an original title, and there's no acronym to it, but the Soviets want to do it on their own. Now, these countries include, within NATO, Canada, U.S., Belgium, Britain, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, and Portugal. All right. So, we look at the countries here in red. This is kind of how we utilize this as a, you can see the countries here in the Northern Atlantic. All right. Now, continuing. The bell ringer for today deals with the Hollywood 10. The question is you look at the bottom of the worksheet here. But why would Hollywood be the best place for communism to flourish and most likely place for government officials to check on communists? So you go through this answer here, kind of get your area down. All right. Communist advances, number 6. The new threat that comes out of the Soviet Union is the creation of their atomic bomb. All right. The United States response is in 2 ways. One, we want to make people feel safe that the fact that the atomic bomb is held by our enemy. So we create survivor postals, propaganda. We make videos for U.S. citizens. The Civil Defense Administration creates these videos to help make us feel more safe. Also, Truman's response is to subdue American fears is to create a bigger bomb called the hydrogen or thermonuclear bomb. This is kind of the goal that Truman wants to have. He wants them to feel safe, that we can protect ourselves against a nuclear bomb, but at the same time, Truman wants to approve the development of a bigger bomb, thus we still have the upper advantage. All right? So that's number 6 moving forward. All right? Now, number 7, the question does not ask you what happens when China falls to communism. It asks you how confident do you believe the American people were when it came to containment once China does fall. Now, China is one of the largest nations in the world when it comes to population. All right? Mao Zedong takes over communist China, and Truman now has to answer questions by the American media as to why his containment policy is not working. So what this does is it really stains Truman's record. American people are not confident that containment is going to work. They are not confident that the Truman Doctrine or the Marshall Plan are successful in containing communism in areas that would rather seek to achieve a communist government, like China or North Korea or other places. All right? So, if countries really want to get communism, they will find a way to become a communist nation. There's nothing that containment or the Truman Doctrine could do. Now, this is tough for Truman because he promises that under containment that no other countries will fall to communism. So this is something that to keep an eye on. All right? Continuing. Number 8, we look at the loyalty program. Obviously, during the Depression, capitalism does not look too great because of the stock market crash. The American economy, tanks, and it's a capitalist system. And many of them want to revert to communism because of what it promises to the people that belong to a communist government. Thus, as a result, many anti-communists come forward and begin a crusade in the United States, which many of them lose their civil liberties as a result. Now, the loyalty program is set up. As you look at some of these programs, you have an investigation of all newly hired federal employees. Some of these people could be accused of doing something wrong, not truly convicted. But the problem is, if you're accused, your career, your reputation all goes down the drain. And this is the question I have to ask you at the loyalty program. As you continue to read through this information, the question is on page 649 of your book. Do you believe the government's actions were legal? Why not? Now, a lot of people said that at this time, the Supreme Court, Congress would be okay with the government's decisions because it's about upending communism, not about people's rights, not about people's civil liberties. And people at this time were willing to give up civil liberties much easier than they are today because of the threat that looms on the United States, which is the communist threat. All right? So, people said it was legal, but in today's world, if you think about it, probably would not be accepted too much here if you consider that the Americans love their freedoms, they love their rights, they love having the ability to speak their mind without having being persecuted for it. Even though, depending on what you're saying, that holds true. All right? So, this loyalty program is, most people argued, at that time it was legal, but today would not be accepted, would not be cool for today. All right, so that's number 8 as you read through this loyalty program. And then finally, number 9 deals with 3 different issues. The HUAC, which you see here, which is the House Un-American Activities Committee. The sole purpose of this program was Congress's hunting down of people throughout the government to make sure that people aren't communists. They also probed Hollywood and movies throughout this point, which creates the Hollywood 10, which is the second point here, second event. 10 of the Hollywood elite that were imprisoned for being in contempt of Congress. People who were accused of being communists couldn't prove that they were communists. However, when subpoenaed in front of a congressional board to be questioned about their loyalties to the country and to question their intentions, they would never give straight answers. Some of you are probably looking on the news to see Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook in front of Congress answering questions about Facebook's security and the privacy settings that Facebook should follow and how they were violated throughout the 2016 campaign for president and also for other offices around the country. But here, these Hollywood members were subpoenaed to Congress. They were asked questions if they were communists. Are you not communist? Are you loyal to this country? So a lot of these people would not cooperate with Congress, which means you're in contempt of Congress, and they are found guilty. They're thrown in prison. One of the individuals that we look at here is Dalton Trumbo. There's a movie out called Trumbo, starring Bryan Cranston as Dalton. Goes through his career as someone who is blacklisted, who cannot ever get a job in the film industry ever again. However, the story goes that Dalton Trumbo continues to write movies, but under a different name. All right, he writes under a different name, and he continues to write movies, and he wins Academy Awards that nobody knows that he wins, but his movies do win. So it's something that's pretty interesting as you see Dalton Trumbo continue to fight this what he believes to be a violation of First Amendment rights of what the movie industry should be allowed to produce in terms of what you can have. Now, also, the McCarran-Walter Act is an immigration quota system that is created to try to block immigrants. It's very similar to Trump's travel ban that we've seen in the news recently. All right, but we have this stuff happening, and it all is about getting Americans against communism, and these are all big events that help make the American people upset. All right. So tomorrow we'll start the Korean War, and you can look through some of this stuff here and get these notes and pause. But I wish you have a good day.